Alexa, open BraveWords Radio.
Welcome back to BraveWords Radio. Brought to you by Vox Protocol, the global leader in voice app entertainment. BraveWords Radio is an awesome musical extension of BraveWords.com, where we have been waving the flag of hard rock and heavy metal around the world for over 30 years. Since you have been here before, we hope you enjoy BraveWords Radio.
But I have to remark about your your long Facebook post about it being the best year ever. It was such a
Yes.
wonderfully written, and it wasn't long. It was just full of glory.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't too boring.
But explain. It was the best year ever. Why was it the best year ever?
Well, it was, it started off good. It started off strong. I released an album with my band called Fury. We're a kind of traditional heavy metal band based in Birmingham. Throughout the year, I was feeling a little bit frustrated about where I was in the music scene. This album that I released was a self-release, and we're an independent band. We started playing in Europe and doing some of the bigger festivals, but it's still kind of frustratingly, not getting to where I kind of wanted to be by this point in my life. And so unexpectedly went to a festival, Bloodstock Festival in August, and there I just went to see Mercyful Fate because they're a band that I've been a huge fan of since I was about 14. And it was the first time I'd had the opportunity to go and see them. So I was like, yeah, definitely going to get a ticket. And so, yeah, that week I picked one up and went down to the festival. When I was there, I was having a pretty rubbish day on the day they played on the Saturday. Again, just I was talking to friends about, the kind of frustrations I was having with the music industry and where I'm at the moment. It's nothing wrong with the band that I'm in, but it's just this kind of classic metal. It's just not very popular, and a lot of labels don't really want to put stuff behind it because it's not very trendy right now. And that's fine. I never really wanted to be trendy, but you just kind of want to get those good shows in, and that sort of thing. So throughout the day, having a bit of a weird time, but I was wandering around the festival site and someone came up to me, a friend, and said, oh, could you meet this person, Livia? And I'm like, who's that? I don't know who Livia is, but sure, yeah, I will meet them. And they said, don't go anywhere, wait there. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then they come back a little later and they say, oh, you have to come with me. And I'm like, sure. I mean, I don't know who Livia is, but I will go to them to meet them. I mean, maybe they could come to me if they want to meet me, but at the time I just had no idea who this was. And then I end up realizing that I'm coming backstage where on the main stage of this festival, Bloodstock Festival, and we're going around the side, and I'm like, oh, they're like someone who's working here or someone who's involved with these bands, this Livia person. Later I discovered that Livia is King Diamond's wife, and so she was kind of trying to orchestrate me meeting them. And so I'm kind of starting to follow along, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're going backstage. Am I going to meet Mercyful Fate? This would make sense because they're the next band on this stage, and people might know that I've been a fan of Mercyful Fate for a long time. I've posted videos covering some of their songs before, and I love the band, so I thought maybe we're going to meet them. And I'm kind of waiting around, being told to wait different places. Nobody's really telling me what is going on. And then someone comes up to me who I later got to know as the manager of Mercyful Fate, and they said, do you know why you're here? I'm like, no idea, no clue. I mean, I'm hoping I'm meeting the band, but yeah, we'll see. And they're like, oh, they want you to come on tour with them, Mercyful Fate do. And I'm like, oh, what? how, like, in what way, like, am I doing merch, am I an extra? Because I know, you know, like with King Diamond shows, they have like extras, they have people performing that aren't part of the band, and I'm like, well, this is cool, like, okay, cool, but why? And they were like, no, we need you to play bass, we need a bass player, and they want you to play bass. And I'm like, no. No, that can't be real. But they were like, yeah, so we're gonna, if you're ready to, like, you can go and speak to King now about it all. And yeah, so they kind of like shoo me into this room, and King's there, full makeup, full like stage outfit and everything. And I was like, oh my god, this is like, suddenly, like, it went from like exciting to kind of like terrifying, but still exciting again. And then yeah, we just had a little chat there. I was like just so awkward, and like I was being filmed at the same time as well. So Olivia was filming.
Right.
This footage may have been used to introduce me to Mercyful Fate fans and be like, okay, we found this person. This is her meeting King, and she's going to be playing on the tour. But I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen this footage. I don't know. I don't know how it came out. Like, it's probably me looking absolutely stunned, and they were like, no, this isn't a good look for anyone.
Dude, that is so funny that you went from buying a concert ticket to getting the golden ticket.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Wow, that is surreal. So everybody wants to meet King, but very few people get to meet King. So what were the feelings when you first met? Because this guy is larger than life. Like, he's, you know what I mean? He's more metal than metal.
Yes. Yeah. So that was, yeah, it was just very overwhelming, and being in full makeup. You know, when you meet a lot of people, you're just kind of trying to read their face and try and be like, okay, what
Right.
are your expressions? What are your eyes saying? Are you happy, angry, sad? And you're trying to figure out what they're expressing, but the makeup kind of covers a lot of this, so it is a bit like intimidating. I definitely found it very intimidating, but he was so friendly and just happy. And because I was like stunned into silence, like I didn't want to say anything uncool, so I was very quiet during this time, and he was just happy to carry the conversation. He had a lot to talk about. He was talking about the tour that they'd been on over the last few months, and yeah, and he was really cool, like a really nice guy.
He is a really friendly fellow. He really is. We've known him for a long time, actually. He was before BraveWords started the magazine. I was compiling news, and I had a fax list to send all the heavy metal news out weekly, and he wanted to be on the fax list. So we've got a relationship that goes way back to the early 90s. But the fact that you met his wife and you got the golden ticket, and the story is really surreal because you hail from the home of heavy metal. So how can this wonderful bass player then get this gig? Like, it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah, yeah, like I kept so I mean, when I was there at the festival, I spoke briefly to King, and then a little bit after the show to Hank, the guitarist, Hank Sherman, and he was like, oh yeah, it was me who suggested you to the band, because I've watched some of your videos that you've posted on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, and when we started thinking of bass players, and we went through our initial list that the management had provided them, and none of them was really like setting them on fire like this. You know, they were all good enough, they said, like, you know, they were all great, but they weren't really like, I don't know, they said they didn't get a strong feeling about any of them particularly, except for one of the bass players. I don't know if I'm allowed to say who it is though, but it was like a big name person who they
Right.
asked first, but he was too busy and he couldn't do it. But when I heard that, it was really cool because it was a really big bass player. But anyway, I was the second call that they
The second
made.
coolest.
But anyway, yeah, they said after they looked through this list, they said, okay, maybe these are all men on this list. Why can't we have a woman playing bass in Merciful Fate? There's no reason why not. And then when King mentioned this, Hank was like, actually, I know the perfect person. I've been following, or I've seen videos of this girl from Birmingham, and you know, she plays these covers of like loads of metal songs and like great stuff, and I think she'd be great for it. And then And then someone brought up like, oh, it sounds like she's going to Bloodstock this week. Why don't we speak to her there? So the decision was made really quickly. And, they had a few days looking around my content on YouTube and things, and then decided to make the offer at the festival because they thought that would be a cool surprise for me.
Now, and if, excuse me, if you're a fan of Mercyful Fate, you obviously know those early records were monumental. They really changed the face of extreme music. And it wasn't just King's voice, like the dual leads, you know what I mean? The guitar work from Hank Sherman. It was just absolutely brilliant. It just took things to another level.
Yeah, absolutely. Like learning the songs, going back through the catalog and really studying like what's going on musically was really like it just made me appreciate them so much more, because although like I'd listened to them, I knew the songs, I'd never like played through them and really appreciated how they're a lot more proggy than I thought they would be. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like they're kind of like if Judas Priest were like heavier and then more prog, like because that when you're learning the songs, you're like, okay, cool, we've got this verse, we've got this chorus, that's great. When's the verse coming back? Oh, wait, there's no verse. Like we're going to go into this like long tangent of loads of different solos and like new ideas being brought in all the time. And yeah, I think people don't really because of like the imagery and like how prog rock and a lot of prog metal is very different musically, just sounds very different like stuff, isn't it? They don't expect Merciful Fate to also be kind of proggy, but in the way they put songs together, definitely they're experimenting with all different things. I've just been transcribing one of their songs, Come to the Sabbath, just writing out all the bass lines. And they change key signature like 4 times or something at least. They change tempo all the time. I'm trying to name the sections and I'm like, I don't even know what you would call this anymore. They've just gone on to such a different tangent. And that's probably one of their most standard verse chorus kind of songs. Whereas, Satan's Fall, which is like 13 minutes long, is a lot more going on there. So yeah, though they're like a very unique and interesting band, and knowing and thinking of them in context of history, like where they were starting, and all the kind of different music, all the bands that they influenced, it's really incredible that just this random band from Denmark, like created so much variety in the music that came after it, like getting heavier, like influencing a lot of like kind of more extreme like satanic bands, and then influencing Metallica, and possibly even like the kind of the prog rock, prog metal stuff that came later on.
Like one beautiful thing about this moment is like they're finally, like they've always had a spotlight, but just watching the shows and how many people that they're drawing, it's like I'm so happy for King that, you know what I mean, to see thousands. They're not like playing little tiny clubs, they're playing like thousands of people. You guys are, it's like finally justice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of my friends that are into metal, they know Merciful Fate, but they're not like super into them. They're not like one of the big ones that you first get into when you first discover metal. You kind of work your way back to Merciful Fate eventually, and now it feels like with them coming back so strong on this tour, like headlining so many great metal festivals in Europe, and doing those shows in Mexico and America. It feels like if they wanted to continue, they could really step things up, and there'd be a lot of people watching.
Absolutely. So tell me about your first jam session and how did it feel and what did you jam?
So I ended up arriving in Dallas, which is where the first gig was, where we were doing the rehearsals. I ended up arriving 2 days late because I had problems with my passport coming back to me in time. So it was the Wednesday and I was meant to be flying and I didn't have my passport. So
Wow.
so I was cutting it fine with the rehearsals. I was losing days of rehearsals. I was getting a bit worried that it wouldn't arrive in time to even do the first gig or do any of the tour. I was starting to think, oh no, they're going to have to find someone else to do this tour. But eventually I made it there a few days before the first show, And yeah, the first full day we went into the venue, set up in a little room, so it was just me, Hank, Mike, and Bjarne. So no King at the moment, and we just were like, well, let's just start with the first song. And so we had the set list and we ran through all the way. And yeah, that not really any stops or anything. We just kind of like, okay, yep, that song sounded good. Next one. That song sounds good. Next one. Until we were done. And then they were like, okay, that's fine. You're good. Should we finish now? And I'm like, what? We're only going to do one run through of the songs. And they were like, yeah, well, they're like, we've played it all summer. And actually, we've been playing these songs since the 80s. So, like for Hank, especially, it's like, I don't want to play it again. Like, I know these songs. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, maybe let's have a break and then come back to it. And so we did do it a couple more times, but they were a bit like, oh no, like we've got this, you've got this, it'll be fine, don't worry. But I don't know, I just really wanted to make sure everything was right for the performance. Playing with a drummer for the first time in particular, you really want to make sure you have the time to get locked in. But luckily, like I had been preparing for quite a while at home, and I've been watching live shows rather than the recordings. I've been playing through with them with the live show, so I hear every like little change that there could be, every cue that's different. We did that, and yeah, so after that day, they were all quite satisfied. And then we did some sound checking, and that's the first time playing with King was during the sound check. We did maybe 3 of the songs, so
right.
Yeah, we didn't do very much rehearsing. Only like a couple of songs as a full band, and then once or twice as a 4-piece. But the thing is, the vocals cue a lot of changes that are going on when you're like, okay, I know I have to play this riff like 13 times, and then you're like, hang on, how many times have I done it? And you're waiting for the vocals to bring you back. But we managed to keep everything together, and then it just made it even easier when King was added to the mix, because we can rely on him to do the right thing. They're his songs, and he's been doing it for a really long time as well. So yeah, actually the first gig went pretty well.
Now, it's one thing to learn the songs and know the songs, but how did you think about what am I going to do on stage? And maybe more importantly, what am I going to wear on stage?
Okay, for what to wear, I actually had a conversation with King only a few days after he offered me the job, and he was like, okay, like this is things we need to think about, like you can go wherever you want on the stage. Oh yeah, the only thing he said, like just don't stand in front of me when I'm singing like a particular line or something, which I wouldn't do anyway. You wouldn't be blocking the view of the singer like from the audience. So he just said that, and then he's like, oh yeah, like your style is really cool, it's very metal, but I've noticed you tend to wear like all different things, skirts and shorts and lots of different things on stage. We prefer if you just wore all black, maybe some like trousers or something, maybe like leather trousers or something. And I was like, oh, I've been meaning to treat myself with like a really good pair of custom leather pants, so I'm and I was like, this is perfect. I'll get my friend because going back to the Bloodstock thing when I was there, where they asked me, the girl who came to find me and said Olivia wants to speak to you, that was my friend Sophie from Painkiller Clothing, and she's the one who came to find me. And I was like, you were there when this all happened, and you were there stood next to me at side of stage when we were watching the band. Please make me custom fake leather stage trousers for the tour. And she was like, hell yeah, let's do that. So yeah, he just said, like, he was very open, like, okay, yeah, just wear some black trousers, as metal as you like, but not too cut bright and over the top, so just keep it black. And then for stage, he said I could kind of go wherever I liked, really. For the first show, I was a bit more concerned about getting in someone's way. I didn't know where they were going to go, so I just kind of kept an eye out and didn't move around too much. But as it went on, we kind of spoke more with like Hank and Mike, and was like, okay, during this song, you go over to that side of stage, I'll come over there, we'll both climb the stairs at the same time and rock out at the top. and stuff like this. We kind of figured out little things that we could do to make it a bit more visually interesting, and I started to figure out where I could go without getting in someone's way, because that is a big thing. It would be really embarrassing to like knock into someone and like send someone flying across the stage.
But and not to kiss your butt or anything, people love you. You really do fit in there, and it's really evil. Are you comfortable with the whole evil? Because it's like, man, it's a pretty dark set, and not just the upside down cross. It's a horror show. It is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's great that people have welcomed me so much. I was a bit concerned that people wouldn't,
Sure.
Something a bit different, having like a woman involved and also someone quite a lot younger than the rest of them. It's like, well, you weren't there when the band came out, so how would you know? Like, you don't know what it's like to be a true Mercyful Fate fan who's been there since the 80s. So I was kind of expecting a bit of a backlash, a bit of like, who does she think she is, like playing with these legends when she's just some unknown person from Birmingham. But yeah, like I was really welcomed into the Mercyful Fate fan family and stuff, and it was really lovely to see. And yeah, no, I love the stage set, and I think it's really cool. I was trying to do a lot of extra research before doing the tour, like all the background about like King and the band, and like the satanic church and stuff like this. And I've been finding it all really fascinating, and there's so much to take in about the band. Like, I can't possibly watch enough interviews to really get a grasp of what's going on.
So where do you stand with all the satanic elements around that? Is that part of your shtick? Are you?
I mean, it's something I hadn't really been thinking about for a long time. When I was a teenager, I was really into like the satanic stuff, and like I was drawing pentagrams everywhere. I mean, that was because I went to like very Christian and like Catholic schools. So the kind of the Christian religious thing was very forced on me. And so it was kind of a rebellion. Like, I don't like these teachers. They're picking on me for being like as I am, like into metal, and they're saying it's all satanic music and I should stop. And it's like, well, if it's satanic music and I like it, maybe I'm satanic. So okay. Like, and I really leaned hard into it, but mostly because I just really didn't like my teachers, and I didn't like the way religion was pushed on me. But more recently, since leaving school and stuff, I haven't felt like religion has been as forced upon me, so I haven't felt as much like I want to push back upon it. And I feel like a lot of like the Satanism is that it is just like we don't need this religion forced down our neck, so we're creating our own thing, which is against that. And so I completely understand it, but it was something that I hadn't really engaged with for quite a few years until researching everything about Mercyful Fate.
Kronos told me a really funny story about the early Venom years, and he said all they wanted to do was give the finger to the church.
Yeah.
Is that funny?
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, like, when you've been getting so frustrated with how you're expected to live and believe, and everything about your life seems so set out in the Christian way that if you are a bit different and you're starting to be shunned, and you're definitely just going to lean more and more into just being like, yeah, fuck you.
What is it? What? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, like, I'm not like you and I don't want to be like you, so now I'm a Satanist.
What does your family think about your new gig or the year?
Well, I think at first when I was trying to explain to them, they just didn't really understand. Like, they had no concept of how big the band are. And at first they were like, oh, that's nice, very good, very good. Oh, I'm glad this is happening. And then like, I think I left them, I didn't speak to them again for a few weeks. And then next time I saw them, they were like, I think they'd done some research. And then they were like, oh my God, there's this band. Yeah, like, they, don't really know much about the metal scene. But, when they started to read more and more about it, they were like, wow, so they've been around since the 80s, like they're like as old as we are. And they were like, why are you doing this? This doesn't make any sense. And yeah, so they were just, they didn't really know how to take, like, they didn't know how big a deal it was at first, but like eventually they started to come around when I started to be like, yo, this is the pictures that the tour bus we're going to be on, and I'm flying here, they're flying me there. And because my mum was saying like, oh well, what are you going to do about your lessons, like how are you going to afford to live, like, because you can't teach while you're on tour. And I'm like, mom, like they will pay me. Like it's not it's not like the touring that I'm used to, where it's just hemorrhaging money all the time. Like you get paid to do tours when you're playing to like 2,000 to 5,000 people. Like there is some money in it.
Well, if we can reflect on the first time I met you, so it's not just playing with Mercyful Fate. Like the bill that I saw you with, Stryper was kind of funny, Behemoth, you guys, and Pantera and Judas Priest. Like that's surreal right there.
Yeah, no, that was like a perfect, such a cool lineup. And yeah, it was great to be sandwiched between these bands. It was just incredible. When I first saw the Mercyful Fate announce these two shows, Hell and Heaven Festival and Monterey Metal Fest, I was like, oh wow, that'd be great. Wow, I wish I was doing those, because I thought I was just on the USA tour,
Right.
and that would be it, and then Joey would be back. And then a few weeks later they were like, oh, by the way, are you good for these two shows, because we kind of need you. And I'm like, oh yeah, turns out I am free. Yes. Because yeah, looking at the lineups they were playing, like no chance in hell there would be that kind of caliber of bands playing the same event in England. Like it just wouldn't happen. I don't really know why, but like yeah, it just doesn't happen. You don't get all of those like proper huge bands coming to the UK to play the same place.
Just two more questions about that show. What's your opinion on the Pantera reunion, and how does it feel to open up for the Metal Gods?
Well, yeah, so the Pantera reunion, I don't know. I do find it a bit, there's certain parts of it I'm kind of uncomfortable with, if you know what I mean. But watching the fans react how they did, and it was just really cool. Everyone was just like excited to hear those songs live again. I mean, I feel like maybe they should have named it something else, like named
Right.
it as a, called it like the Cowboys from Hell, or something that wasn't Pantera. It feels like, it does kind of make sense to call it Pantera, but I think the main reason behind that was to make as much money as possible, which a lot of people would do that. Like I guess I can't blame them, but yeah, it was just great to see people able to enjoy those songs again live, with as much of Pantera as they could possibly get.
Well, I understand the debate, but when you've got the family giving their blessing, and I was just so overwhelmed how good, like I've seen Pantera in their heyday, and wow, it was just unbelievable. And when I looked at that audience, I would say 80-90% of the kids out there weren't even around when Pantera was around in the early 90s, right? So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, you gotta, like, if there's people there to listen and they want to listen, they want to come out to shows, and anything that brings metalheads out to have a good time is good by me.
So talk to me about bass and why you picked up the bass, and what is a bass riff that you wish that you wrote?
Oh, so I started playing when I got my first bass when I was 13, on my 13th birthday. And I was just I just discovered rock music and Metallica and all this stuff. And I didn't really know the difference between basses and guitars exactly. But the more I looked into it and was like, okay, so that's the difference. And that person is a bass player and that person is a guitarist. I started to think, okay, actually the bass players are really cool. They're always like the kind of calm, understated, cool people in the band. And I kind of like that. And
I love that.
my favorite bass players were like Cliff Burton and Steve Harris, John Entwistle. players like that. And yeah, they kind of influenced me through while I was growing up with metal and rock.
And you are living now in the home of heavy metal. So we're talking Sabbath, Priest, Zeppelin, Napalm Death. Talk to me about living in the home of heavy metal. A lot of heritage there.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I moved here about 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, 2 years ago. So I'm not a native of Birmingham, but I heard the call and I was like, this is where I need to be. It's such a great city. I moved from Bristol. I was living before, and yeah, it's a lovely place. There's still lots of great venues around. There's metalheads everywhere. Like I don't know whether it's just me or like back in Bristol, you'd see a metalhead and you'd be like, whoa, there's one metalhead. Wow. But I live like quite far out from the city center and I'm seeing people walk their dogs and I'm like, oh my God, Metallica, Kill 'Em All hoodie. No way. And I'm like, should I shout out the window and be like, be my friend? Or should I just be cool? And then, you go to the local gym and there's someone in a Slipknot t-shirt and they're like, hey, like your Typo Negative t-shirt. And I'm like, hey, I like your Slayer t-shirt or whatever. And you just see them like out and about doing their day-to-day normal things. They're just normal people, but they're metalheads. Like normally you have to go to a dedicated rock bar to find these people. Oh, I don't know why my camera's turning off. I'm having this issue lately. Okay, I don't know what that is. But yes, Birmingham is great. Unfortunately, I haven't been to see the Black Sabbath bridge yet, but you know what it's like when you don't do touristy things when you live somewhere. So I always think, okay, yeah, in a few months I'll go see the Black Sabbath bridge.
That was one of my questions. Have you sat on the Black Sabbath bench?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go there soon. That is my plan for this year, but who knows? When you live somewhere, you just don't. You always think there's another way, another time to see it.
Just a couple more quickies. And your camera, we're still off, I see.
I don't know what to do.
It's okay. We can wrap this up in a couple minutes. I've got some cool little questions. Talk to me about Fury. I know you. Oh, there you go. Okay. You're back. Talk to me about your band Fury.
Okay. Yeah. So Fury are a traditional metal band, like more in the vein of Iron Maiden and Metallica. I joined them around like the start of 2018, and we put out an album in April 2020, which was interesting for us.
Yeah, sure.
So we put out the album The Grand Prize, and then full lockdown in the UK. Didn't really do many gigs until like 2021 in like the autumn. But during this time, during the lockdown, we wrote another album because we were like, well, that album's done. Like we did what we could, when the 2020 album came out, we started doing like live streams on Facebook and stuff like this to try and like engage some kind of audience. And it worked in some ways because usually we just tour the UK, but this way we got to reach audiences all over the world. So there were people in America tuning in, and Japan and Australia or wherever, then we started getting like orders of our CD to all these different new places. So that was one good thing that came out of it. We had to adapt to doing things online, and that opened us out to a bigger audience, a different audience. But we were thinking, okay, like it would be really nice to tour though. So what are we going to do when things open up in a few years? Like, let's be ready with another album. So we wrote the album Born to Sin, and we released that in March 2022.
It's very empowering to women to see somebody like you on stage. How do you view that?
I think that's cool. I think it's necessary for women to continue feeling included in the metal scene, because I think it is sometimes an uphill struggle. And there are times I've spoken to friends and I'm like, feeling a bit rubbish because someone has made some comment, and I'm like, oh God, they don't want me here because I'm a woman and it sucks. And like, why do they treat me differently because I'm a woman? It's like it's rubbish. And then my friends will say like, well, you will walk so that others will run. Like the women that came before you, like in the 80s and stuff, they had an even harder time than you, but like they paved the way. They made it a little bit easier for you. There's more women now than there have been before, and the media is starting to pick up on that a bit more. They're starting to kind of feature more women and in magazines and stuff, and then hopefully keep this up, keep being badass, and in another 10-20 years there'll be even more women, and people won't be able to ignore us and treat us rubbish anymore, like, because we'll be a bit more equal. There'll be more of us, and we can gang up on them and pick on them instead.
Becky, I love that. You will walk so they can run. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Is that yours?
Yeah, no, when my friend said that, I was like, guys are gonna cry. So yeah, don't give me all this like inspirational stuff because it'll go to my head.
What are some of your female heroes over time?
So I would say like Fernando Lira from Crypta and Ex Nervosa. I hope I've got her name right.
Right.
She's awesome. And if I'm thinking like back, like I really love the Great Cat. I think she's really cool. I think
Yes.
she, she's very different, but I think she's so ahead of her time. I just don't think the world was ready for her in the 80s. Like, if you think of her like larger than life personality, the way she dressed, the way she was just like so over the top, you'd expect that from like Blackie Lawless or like Ozzy or like Tommy Lee or something. But like people couldn't get their head around it. They couldn't wrap their head around that a woman would be doing this, dressing sexual by her own choice, and like being very in your face about so much stuff, and like shredding, like completely nonsense shred, which lots of guys do as well, but like because it's a woman, it's like, oh, it's all nonsense. And then she like will bring this like classical element into her playing, and then people are just like, nah man, I'm not ready for this. I think it's a shame that she isn't as big as I think she could have been, because I think she was a real rock star. And I think even now, if the Great Cat was at her peak now, people still wouldn't be ready for her.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember.
Yeah, she's an alien from the future, I think.
And you're also a teacher. Talk to me about the Bristol Rock Center, and you seem to be giving a lot back to the community.
Oh yes, well, yeah, I formed I founded the Bristol Rock Center when I finished music university with some other ex-students and graduates from down there in Bristol. And yeah, our aim was to not just teach lessons in like bass, guitar, vocals, drums, but to start to get the kids playing together. So we were doing workshops, and we had a rehearsal room where we were trying to get the kids playing there, and then performing at local shows. So yeah, it was trying to make, we were just like skint students, really. Like, we were then ex-students, but we were still skint because we're musicians. So we were like trying to find a way to like, keep the teaching, get teaching kids and make it a bit more interesting, and incentivize them to start playing together, because like so many kids these days, they're glued to their video games, and they don't interact with people in person very much. And and it's really sad, because there's something so special about getting in a room together and making music, and trying to get those few kids that are still somewhat interested in doing that, and just forcing them to like play together until they're ready to do a gig, and hopefully they catch the bug for it, and yeah, come out of their like video game shells
and their phones,
start,
right?
Yeah, and start like being normal.
Can you recall a time in your life that somebody gave you that kind of lift up?
Yeah, I think so many times. Like, I think there's this quote, self-made is a toxic myth, that I follow a lot of people that talk about this kind of thing, like
Right.
that nobody is really self-made. And even though like some people work much harder than others and get to different places, it's all about the community that you build and the people who do things for you. So like this opportunity with Mercyful Fate, I was given this opportunity. I didn't, as much as I did, work for it, I was given to it by someone else. And my first breaks in teaching, or I worked for this exam board called Rock School that do music exams, when one of their guys gave me my first job doing that, or proofreading for that, like so many, or any gig that I've ever been asked to dep for. I always think like, thank you so much, you've put so much faith into me, because as like a dep, someone who's filling in for someone, something can easily go wrong on a performance, and you will look stupid as the band leader for hiring me. So yeah, thank you so much for your trust.
I guess my last question
throughout the time, throughout my career, there's been so many times like that, and it's just I feel really grateful for all of them. But yeah, the best one so far has been Mercyful Fate.
Yes, of course. Well, maybe my final question should be, let's address the elephant in the room, and what is the future with you and Mercyful Fate?
I think I can't really tell you, like, it's there is no set thing that's going to happen. So Mercyful Fate have a bass player in Joey Vera, and I think they really want to stay with him because he's an amazing bass player, and he was approved by Timmy before Timmy passed away. So there's no changes happening in that front, and so I think fans can be assured that there's not going to be really any drastic lineup changes or anything like that. But I think anytime that Joey is busy again, maybe with Ahmed Saint or one of his other, he's got like 4 bands on the go. So
yeah, he does.
He could end up busy again. Then I think I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be their first call. So you may see me show up with Mercyful Fate, or and actually King did say like, oh, if I need a depth bass player for King Diamond, then I'll give you a call. And I'm like, that'd be great. Yes.
Did you get the vibe from the band that there was like a real hunger, and that they just want to just keep rocking this around the world?
I think so, yeah. When I was speaking to them about like what's going on in the future, they were like, oh, I don't really know, we don't actually have any more gigs booked after this. And I'm like, oh, like I feel that because this is my last time playing with you guys, but like, oh, I didn't realize you haven't got any plans for any more shows for the next like year or so, because they're doing like an album cycle now, so they're going to be working on either King doing his album or Mercyful Fate doing theirs. They're going to start, like, they have to time this all very like cleverly. So yeah, it's going to be a little while before they're playing together again. But they did sound a bit sad about it, and I was very sad about it because I was like, yeah, come and play the UK again. I want to come and see. I haven't watched the show from the audience yet. When I saw them at Bloodstock, I was side stage, so right. I was like enjoying myself, like singing along. But it's different when you've got like hundreds and thousands of people around you all enjoying the experience together and going crazy, and like watching seeing the full stage setup, which is all very beautiful and symmetrical and great. It wasn't quite like that from the side of stage, and obviously on the stage you don't quite get the full effect. So I really hope they come and tour soon, and I'll see them in the UK.
Last question, was there any talk about maybe you contributing to any new material?
There wasn't actually, but we shall see. Like, I wasn't really asked about any recording stuff, but I did say, let me know if there's anything you need me to do. I will come and do it. So who knows?
I'm so happy for you. Thank you so much for spending time. I was been looking so much forward to this interview. So thank you.
Good.